Captain Minho stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon's edge, watching the stars through the main window. The ship had been traveling through deep space for 3 months now. It was humanity's first real attempt to explore beyond their own solar system. The crew of 200 people had volunteered for this dangerous mission into the unknown. "Captain," called Gina from her station. She was the communications officer, a young woman who never missed anything on the radio waves. "I'm getting something strange here." Minho walked over to her station. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. "What kind of strange?" Gina adjusted her headset and frowned at her screen. "It's a transmission from somewhere. Far away. Much farther than we've ever received before. The signal is weak, but it's definitely artificial. Someone built whatever is sending this. Put it on the main speakers," Minho ordered. The bridge filled with static. Then a voice began to speak. The words were not in any human language, but the ship's computer worked quickly to translate them. The voice sounded tired and formal. "Greetings to all who receive this message. I am Ambassador Kava of the Villani people. We broadcast this message according to the ancient protocols of the Galactic Diplomatic Council. We follow all proper forms and ceremonies as required by law." Do-Yun, the science officer, looked up from his station. He was a serious man who always paid attention to details. "Captain, this is the first proof we have that other intelligent species exist, and they're talking about a galactic council." The voice continued. "We, the humble Villani, find ourselves in a situation that requires the wisdom of our galactic neighbors. A field of asteroids approaches our home system. Our calculations show that several large rocks will strike our planet in approximately 6 standard months." Gina turned to look at Minho. "Captain, did they just say asteroids are going to hit their planet?" "Our scientists have worked tirelessly on this problem," the voice went on. "However, we must admit that our technology may not be sufficient for this challenge. We therefore respectfully request the honored consideration of any species who might possess superior knowledge in the fields of gravitational manipulation or large-scale orbital mechanics." The message continued for several more minutes. Ambassador Kava spoke about diplomatic procedures, proper channels, and formal review processes. He mentioned committees and subcommittees. He talked about how any advice would be reviewed by the appropriate authorities in due time. "We understand that all species have their own important concerns," Kava said. "We do not presume to interrupt the vital work of others. We merely hope that some small portion of wisdom might be shared when convenient to assist in our humble situation. We await any response that the honored galactic community might see fit to provide." The transmission ended with static dot. The bridge was silent for a moment. Then Do-Yun spoke up. "Did I understand that correctly? Their planet is about to be destroyed by asteroids, and they're asking for help?" "That's what it sounded like to me," said Gina. Minho rubbed his chin. But the way he said it, it was so formal, so polite, like he was asking someone to pass the salt at dinner. "Maybe that's just how they talk," suggested Gina. Do-Hyun was already working at his computer. "I'm analyzing the data that came with the transmission. There are star charts here and mathematical models." He paused, his eyes growing wide. "Captain, this is serious. According to these calculations, at least 12 large asteroids will hit their planet. Each one is big enough to cause massive destruction." "How massive?" asked Minho. "The kind that killed the dinosaurs on Earth. Except there are 12 of them coming at once." The bridge fell silent again. Minho felt a cold feeling in his stomach. "So their entire species could be wiped out?" "Yes, sir. Every living thing on their planet." Minho looked around at his crew. They were all staring at him, waiting for orders. These people had signed up to explore space, not to save alien worlds. But now they had stumbled onto something much bigger than anyone had expected. "Sir," said Gina quietly. "Why do you think?" He made it sound so casual. "If my planet was about to be destroyed, I would be screaming for help." Do-Hyun pulled up more data on his screen. "Look at this. The message was sent to dozens of different sectors of space. It's a wide broadcast, but the signal strength suggests they don't have very powerful transmitters. They're using everything they have just to send this message out. So they're desperate, but they're trying not to sound desperate, said Minho. That's how it looks to me, sir. Minho walked back to the captain's chair and sat down heavily. In all of his years in the Space Force, he had never faced a decision like this. The ship's mission was to explore and gather information, then return to Earth. They were not equipped for rescue operations. They had no weapons, no special equipment for moving asteroids, and no experience with alien contact. But people were going to die. An entire species was going to be wiped out. Gina, open a channel to Earth Command. Priority Alpha. Yes, sir. It will take about 20 minutes for the signal to reach them, and another 20 for their response. Do it, and send them all the data we received. While they waited, Minho asked Do-hyun to study the Villani star charts more carefully. The science officer worked quietly for a while, then looked up with a troubled expression. Captain, I've been looking at their solar system. It's not just asteroids hitting one planet. This is a massive asteroid field that's going to destroy everything in their system. All their planets, all their moons, everything. How many people live there? The data suggests about 8 billion Villani on the home planet alone. There might be colonies on other worlds too. 8 billion. The number was hard to imagine. That was more people than lived on Earth. And they're all going to die in 6 months? Unless someone helps them, yes. The response from Earth Command came exactly 43 minutes after they sent the message. Commander Hyejin's voice was crisp and professional, but Minho could hear the tension underneath. Captain Minho, we have reviewed your transmission and the attached data. This is indeed a first contact situation of the highest importance. However, the threat to the Villani people is our immediate concern. Minho was not surprised. Commander Hyejin had always been the kind of person who focused on saving lives first and worrying about politics later. You are ordered to maintain your position and continue monitoring Villani transmissions. We are mobilizing a response fleet immediately. Captain Sunho will command the engineering vessels. Dr. Yuna is being recalled from the Mars project to lead the technical team. Gina looked surprised. They're sending Sunho and pulling Yuna off Mars? Minho nodded. Captain Sunho was one of the best construction ship commanders in the fleet. Dr. Yuna was humanity's top expert on gravitational engineering. If Earth Command was sending them, it meant they were taking this very seriously. Furthermore, Commander Hyejin's message continued. Admiral Taehyun is coordinating with all available resources. This operation has been classified as a Code Red humanitarian crisis. All available ships and personnel are being reassigned. Do-hyun whistled softly. Code Red? That's the highest emergency level we have. All available ships? Asked Gina. That's our entire space fleet. Minho felt a mixture of pride and worry. Humanity was about to commit everything they had to saving a species they had never met. It was either the bravest thing they had ever done or the most foolish. Sir, said Do-hyun, I've been thinking about that message. The way Ambassador Kava spoke. It was like he was following a script. What do you mean? I think there are rules about how these requests are supposed to be made. Formal diplomatic language, proper procedures. Maybe in their culture you can't just scream for help, you have to ask politely. Minho thought about this. So they're dying, but they have to be polite about asking for help? That's what it looks like. Well, said Minho, standing up from his chair. They asked for help, and we're going to help them. Ambassador Kava stood in the observation dome of the Villani capital city, watching the stars. In 3 months, those same stars would be blocked by incoming asteroids. His people had done everything they could think of, but their technology simply was not powerful enough. The response from the galactic community had been exactly what Kava expected. Mathematical formulas from the Kronith Empire, a promise of future consideration from the Zephyrians, polite suggestions to contact various research institutions. It was the standard diplomatic response to a standard diplomatic request. Kava, quote, S. Assistant Joran entered the dome carrying a data pad. Ambassador, we have received another response. From whom? A species calling themselves humans. They say they are en route to our system. Kava took the datapad and read the message. It was short and direct, unlike the formal diplomatic language he was used to. This is Captain Sunho of the Human Engineering Fleet. We have received your request for assistance and are traveling to your system immediately. We will arrive in 47 days. Please prepare landing coordinates for our support vessels. Support vessels? Asked Kava. How many ships are they sending? Joran checked his notes. The message lists 187 ships, sir. Kava stared at him. That must be a translation error. I checked it 3 times, sir. 187 ships. This made no sense. When species offered technical assistance, they usually sent one small research vessel with a few experts. Even the most generous aid packages involved maybe 5 or 10 ships at most. What kind of ships? Construction vessels, mining platforms, engineering support, military escort. Military escort? Kava felt a cold fear in his stomach. Joran, did we accidentally send a declaration of war instead of an aid request? I don't think so, sir. I reviewed our message very carefully. It followed all proper diplomatic protocols. Kava walked to his communication console and sent an urgent message to the human fleet. This is Ambassador Kava of the Villani people. We wish to clarify our previous transmission. We were requesting technical consultation only. We did not intend to imply any military involvement was necessary. The response came 12 hours later. It was from someone called Admiral Taehyun. Ambassador Kava, we understand your concern. Our military vessels are present only to protect the civilian ships and assist with heavy lifting operations. We have no hostile intentions toward any species. Our only goal is to help your people survive. Help your people survive. The words struck Kava as strange. Most diplomatic responses talked about providing guidance or sharing knowledge. No one ever talked about survival so directly. Over the following weeks, more messages arrived from the approaching human fleet. Captain Sunho sent detailed requests for information about Villani technology and industrial capacity. Dr. Yuna asked for precise measurements of the incoming asteroids and mathematical models of their trajectories. Admiral Taehyun requested permission to establish a temporary base in the outer system. Each message was businesslike and direct. The humans asked specific questions and expected specific answers. They did not use flowery diplomatic language or ceremonial phrases. They treated the situation like a practical problem that needed to be solved quickly. They act like they're actually going to stop the asteroids, said Joran after reading the latest batch of messages. That's impossible, replied Kava. No one has that kind of power. But as the days passed, Kava began to wonder if he was wrong. 40-7, days after the first human message, Villani long-range sensors detected the approaching fleet. What they saw made no sense. Sir, reported Chief Sensor Operator Lina, I count 191 vessels approaching our system. 191? Yes, sir. They appear to be traveling in a tight formation, moving faster than any fleet I've ever seen. Kava rushed to the sensor station. The display showed a massive group of ships, far larger than anything in Villani records. Some of the vessels were huge, bigger than Villani cities. Others were clearly military, ships with heavy armor and weapons. This is not a research mission, whispered Kava. As the fleet entered Villani space, Captain Sunho sent another message. Ambassador Kava, this is the Human Engineering Fleet. We are beginning our approach to your system. Please prepare coordinates for our advanced teams. Kava sent back a nervous reply. Captain Sunho, we are grateful for your assistance, but we must ask, what exactly do you intend to do? The answer came from Dr. Yuna. Ambassador, we are going to move the asteroids away from your planet. We will need to build several large gravitational field generators in your outer system. The work will take approximately 4 months, but we should be able to redirect the asteroid field completely. Kava read the message 3 times. Joran, did she just say they're going to move the asteroids? That's what it says, sir. All of them? Apparently. Kava had to sit down. In all his years as a diplomat, he had never heard anyone make such a claim. Moving one small asteroid required enormous energy and precise calculations. Moving an entire field of asteroids was beyond the capabilities of any known species. The human fleet took up positions throughout the Vallani system. The largest ships remained in the outer regions, but smaller vessels approached the home planet. Captain Sunho requested permission to land a shuttle at the capital city. Kava agreed to the meeting, though he was nervous about what to expect. When the human shuttle landed at the diplomatic spaceport, Kava was surprised by how ordinary it looked. Just a simple, functional vessel with no decorative markings or ceremonial designs. Captain Sunho stepped out of the shuttle, along with two other humans. He was a middle-aged man with short dark hair and practical clothing. He looked exactly like what he was, an engineer who had come to work. "Ambassador Kava," said Sunho, extending his hand in what Kava had learned was a human greeting gesture. "Thank you for meeting with us." Kava shook the offered hand. "Captain Sunho, we are honored by your presence, but we must admit to some confusion about your intentions." "Our intentions are simple. You asked for help with an asteroid problem. We're here to solve it." The directness of the statement left Kava speechless for a moment. "Captain, we appreciate your willingness to assist, but we fear there may have been a misunderstanding. When we sent our request, we were hoping for technical advice, perhaps some mathematical guidance." "Ambassador," interrupted Sunho gently, "how many people live on your planet?" "Approximately 8 billion. And how many of them will die if those asteroids hit?" Kava felt uncomfortable with such direct language. The impact would be severe. "All of them, right? 8 billion people will die." "Yes." "Then there's no misunderstanding. You need help and we're going to help you." Captain Sunho opened a portable display and showed Kava the human battle plan. Massive gravitational field generators would be constructed at key points around the asteroid field. Working together, these generators would create artificial gravity wells that would pull the asteroids away from their current trajectory. "This will require significant resources," said Sunho. "We'll need to mine raw materials from some of the smaller asteroids. We'll have to build the generators in space, which means establishing temporary construction platforms. And we'll need to coordinate the gravitational fields very precisely." Kava stared at the display. The scope of the project was enormous. "Captain, the cost of such an operation. We're not asking for payment, but surely your government expects some compensation." "Ambassador, your people are in danger. We don't charge people for helping them survive." This concept was completely foreign to Kava. In galactic politics, everything had a price. Aid came with trade agreements, territorial concessions, or political obligations. No species ever provided assistance without expecting something in return. "I don't understand," said Kava honestly. Captain Sunho smiled. "It's simple. You asked for help. We help people who ask for help." Over the next few days, the human operation began in earnest. Massive construction ships moved into the asteroid field and began building gravitational generators. Mining vessels harvested raw materials from the smaller asteroids. Military ships provided protection and heavy lifting support. The Vallani watched in amazement as the humans worked. They operated around the clock with shift changes, keeping the construction going 24 hours a day. When problems arose, they solved them quickly and moved on. When equipment broke, they repaired it or built new equipment on the spot. "They work like the asteroids are going to hit their planet," observed Jareen. Kava nodded. He had been watching the human operation for a week now, and the intensity never decreased. These people were treating the Vallani crisis as if it were their own emergency. "Sir," said Joran, "I've been monitoring galactic communications. Other species are starting to notice what's happening here." "What are they saying?" "They're confused. No one understands why the humans are doing so much." Kava was not surprised. He did not understand it either. Dr. Minseok arrived on the second week to establish a cultural exchange program. He was a xenobiologist who had studied what little information humans had about galactic civilization. His job was to help the two species understand each other better. "Dr. Minseok," said Kava during their first meeting, "may I ask you a question about human culture?" "Of course." 6 months after Ambassador Kava's first desperate transmission, the asteroid field that had threatened to destroy his world was drifting harmlessly away from Vallani space. The massive human gravitational generators had successfully redirected every dangerous rock, sending them on new trajectories that would carry them far from any inhabited system. Captain Minho stood on the bridge of the UES horizon's edge, watching the last of the asteroids disappear into the distance. The mission was complete. 8 billion Vallani people were safe. Final status report, he called to his crew. All asteroids successfully redirected, reported Do-hyun. No remaining threats to the Vallani system. Human fleet status? All vessels, operational and ready for departure, said Gina. Minho nodded with satisfaction. It had been the largest rescue operation in human history, and it had worked perfectly. But as he looked around at his crew, he could see they were all thinking the same thing. This was just the beginning. On the surface of the Vallani homeworld, Ambassador Kava stood before the Global Assembly to deliver his final report on the human aid operation. Representatives from every nation and region had gathered to hear about the species that had saved their world. Honorable representatives, Kava began, 6 months ago, we faced extinction. Today we are alive because a species we had never met decided that our lives were worth saving. The assembly hall was silent. Everyone had watched the human operation through news broadcasts and sensor readings, but hearing it summarized so simply was still shocking. The humans asked for nothing in return. They refused all offers of payment, trade agreements, or political alliances. When I asked Captain Sunho why his people were helping us, he said simply, "You asked for help." Representative Nira from the southern continent raised her hand. "Ambassador, what do the humans expect from us now?" Kava smiled. "They expect us to help others when we have the chance." This concept was as alien to the Vallani as it had been to the rest of the galactic community. In their culture, as in most galactic civilizations, aid came with obligations and expectations. The idea of unconditional help was revolutionary. "They want us to pass it forward," continued Kava. "If we encounter another species in need, they hope we will respond the way they responded to us." The Global Assembly voted unanimously to adopt what they called the Human Protocol. Any request for life-saving aid would be answered immediately and completely, regardless of political considerations. Dr. Yuna was packing up her equipment aboard the main construction platform when she received a message from Earth Command. She had been selected to head the new Galactic Aid Division, a department created specifically to respond to humanitarian crises across the galaxy. "Dr. Yuna," the message from Commander Hyejin read, "Your success with the Vallani operation has proven that humanity has a vital role to play in galactic civilization. We are establishing permanent aid response capabilities based on your recommendations." "Dr. Wang?" Yuna looked out at the Vallani system, now safe and peaceful. In the distance, she could see Vallani construction ships beginning to dismantle some of the smaller human installations. The Vallani had asked if they could keep some of the gravitational technology, and the humans had gladly agreed. Her assistant, Dr. Kyungmin, joined her at the observation window. "Any regrets about leaving Mars to come here?" "None," said Dr. Yuna. "Mars will still be there when we get back. These people almost weren't." Captain Sunho was conducting final inspections of his engineering fleet when he received a priority transmission from Admiral Taehyun. The message was brief but significant. 3 more species had sent aid requests in the past week, all of them using direct, urgent language instead of formal diplomatic protocols. "It seems word is getting around," reported Sunho to his crew. "Other species are starting to understand that we take these requests seriously." "What kind of requests?" asked Lieutenant Yura. "A mining colony that's running out of oxygen, a research station caught in a solar flare, a transport ship with engine failure and 1,000 passengers. All emergencies? All emergencies, and all of them asking for help the way humans would ask for help. Direct and urgent." Captain Sunho smiled. The galaxy was learning. Meanwhile, the political ramifications of the human operation were still spreading. Talar of the Kronith Empire had become one of humanity's strongest supporters, arguing in galactic councils that the human protocol should be adopted by all civilized species. The humans have shown us what aid really means, Talar announced during a major diplomatic conference. While we were sending mathematical formulas, they were moving mountains. While we were scheduling meetings, they were saving lives. Not everyone agreed with Talar's assessment. Some species worried that humanity's approach was too extreme, too costly, and too disruptive to established procedures. The humans ignore proper channels, argued Councillor Bren of the Outer Rim Coalition. They act without consultation, deploy military forces without authorization, and spend resources without economic analysis. This is not diplomacy, it's chaos. No, replied Talar firmly. This is what it looks like when someone actually cares. The debate would continue for years, but the momentum was clearly shifting toward the human approach. Species across the galaxy were revising their aid protocols, establishing emergency response capabilities, and training their people to recognize genuine cries for help. Nala of the Zephyrian Council had become one of the most vocal advocates for reform. Her people had been so embarrassed by their initial response to the Vellani crisis that they had completely rebuilt their aid system. We call it the Vellani lesson, Nala explained to a gathering of diplomatic representatives. Never again will we schedule a meeting while people are dying. Never again will we let proper procedures prevent us from doing what's right. The Zephyrians established the fastest emergency aid response system in the galaxy, capable of deploying assistance within days of receiving a crisis alert. It was a dramatic change for a species that had previously required months of deliberation before taking any action. Dr. Quinn's research on human behavior had become required reading at diplomatic academies throughout the galaxy. Her analysis of humanity's total commitment approach to aid was reshaping how species thought about cooperation and mutual assistance. The humans have introduced a new concept to galactic politics, Dr. Quinn wrote in her final report. The idea that helping others is not a political calculation, but a moral imperative. This worldview is spreading, and it will fundamentally change how civilized species interact with each other. On Earth, the successful Vellani operation had transformed humanity's understanding of their place in the galaxy. Commander Hyejin stood before the United Earth Council, delivering her assessment of the mission's broader implications. The Vellani crisis was our introduction to galactic civilization, she reported. What we learned is that the galaxy desperately needed someone who takes aid requests seriously. We appear to be the first species to respond to cries for help with total commitment. Council President Kim asked the question that was on everyone's mind. What does this mean for humanity's future? It means we're going to be very busy, replied Commander Hyejin. Every week we receive more requests for aid. Some are emergencies, some are routine problems, but all of them are from species who have heard that humans actually help when asked. The Council voted to establish the Galactic Aid Response Force, a permanent organization dedicated to humanitarian assistance across the galaxy. Admiral Taehyun was appointed as its first commander, with Dr. Yuna leading the technical response teams and Captain Sunho commanding the engineering divisions. But perhaps the most significant change was happening on the Vellani homeworld itself. Ambassador Kava had established the Center for Galactic Humanitarian Studies, dedicated to spreading the human protocol throughout the galaxy. The humans saved our world, Kava explained to his staff, but they gave us something even more valuable. They showed us what the galaxy could be like if everyone took requests for help seriously. The center began broadcasting aid coordination messages, connecting species in need with species capable of helping. Within months, it had facilitated dozens of successful aid operations, from disaster relief to technical assistance to refugee support. Captain Minho, now promoted to admiral and commanding humanity's deep space exploration fleet, continued to monitor galactic communications. What he heard filled him with hope. Gina, he called to his communications officer, now serving aboard his new flagship. What's the status on galactic aid requests? 17 active operations, sir. The Altarians are helping the Vegan refugees. The Centaurians are providing medical supplies to the plague-affected Rigel system. The Andromedans are assisting with the collapsed mining platform near Wolf 359. And response times? Average response time has dropped from months to days, sir. Several species have adopted immediate deployment protocols based on the human model. Admiral Minho smiled. The galaxy was learning to help itself. The transformation was not complete, and it would take years for all species to fully embrace the human protocol. But the change had begun, and it was spreading faster than anyone had expected. Dr. Minsuk, now serving as humanity's first ambassador to the galactic community, regularly received reports about the cultural impact of the Villani operation. On the other side of the galaxy, Talar received the same transmission that had reached Captain Minho. Talar was a senior representative of the Kronith Empire, one of the most advanced civilizations in known space. The Kronith had been part of the galactic community for over 3,000 years. Talar sat in his comfortable office reviewing the day's diplomatic messages. There were always dozens of them: requests for trade agreements, complaints about border disputes, formal announcements of new colonies. It was routine work that kept the galaxy running smoothly. When the Villani message came through, Talar listened to it with half his attention while sorting through other documents. Ambassador Kava's formal language was exactly what Talar expected to hear. All proper species followed these protocols when making requests. Another resource consultation request, Talar said to his assistant, Vrin. The Villani want some technical advice about asteroid management. Virin nodded. Standard response, sir? Yes, send them the basic gravitational mathematics. Level 3 clearance. That should be sufficient. Talar marked the message as handled and moved on to the next item. The Villani situation was not unusual. Species often asked for help with technical problems. The proper response was to provide some general information and let them work out the details themselves. It was how things had always been done. The gravitational mathematics that Talar sent would have been useful if the Villani had advanced equipment and several years to work, but they had neither. Meanwhile, in the Zephyrian council chambers, Nala was discussing the same message with her fellow council members. The Zephyrians prided themselves on being fair and democratic. Every decision went through proper committees and voting procedures. The Villani have submitted a formal aid request, Nala announced to the council. It concerns some asteroids in their system. Council member Resh looked at his notes. Have they followed all the proper channels? Yes, the Gordao request was properly formatted and sent through diplomatic channels. Then we should add it to the agenda for next quarter's resource allocation meeting. Nala made a note in her files. That meeting is scheduled for 18 months from now. Will that be acceptable? It should be fine, said Resh. These things rarely require immediate action. The council moved on to discuss more pressing matters like trade regulations and tax policies. The Villani request was filed away with dozens of other routine matters. This was normal. This was how the galaxy worked. Species made formal requests, other species provided formal responses, and everyone followed the established procedures. It had worked for thousands of years. But humanity was not part of this system. They had never learned these rules. While Talar and Nala were filing their routine responses, something unprecedented was happening on Earth. Commander Hyejin stood in the main operations center, surrounded by screens showing ship positions, supply inventories, and personnel assignments. Status report, she called out. Captain Sunho's engineering fleet is ready for departure, reported Lieutenant Donghyun. 47 construction vessels fully loaded with equipment. Dr. Yuna's science team? Assembled and briefed. She's bringing our entire gravitational engineering department. Military escort? Admiral Taehyun has assigned the 3rd Fleet. 68 ships including the flagship Determination. Commander Hyejin nodded. And the civilian volunteers? Lieutenant Donghyun smiled. Over 2,000 applications in the last 6 hours. We're having to turn people away. This was not normal by galactic standards. No species had ever responded to a routine aid request by mobilizing their entire space capability. But humans did not know it was supposed to be routine. Captain Sunho stood on the bridge of his flagship, the UES builder's pride. Around him, the largest engineering fleet in human history was preparing to depart. Supply ships, construction vessels, mobile factories and mining platforms all hung in space like a metal constellation. "Sir," said his navigation officer, Lieutenant Yura. "All vessels report ready for jump." Sunho looked out at his fleet. These ships had been building colonies on Mars and mining stations in the asteroid belt just days ago. Now they were heading into unknown space to save people they had never met. "Are we really doing this?" asked Yura quietly. "They asked for help," said Sunho simply. "What else would we do?" At the same time, Dr. Yuna was reviewing technical specifications in her laboratory ship. She had worked for 5 years developing gravitational field generators for moving large asteroids. The technology was designed to help build human colonies, but it could work for defense too. "The power requirements will be enormous," she told her assistant, Dr. Kyungmin. "We'll need to build at least 12 heavy generators." "Can we do it? In 6 months?" "We'll have to. These people are counting on us." Dr. Kyungmin looked at the Villani star charts. You know, their message was very polite, almost like they were apologizing for asking. Maybe they're just naturally polite people. Or maybe, said Dr. Kyungmin slowly, they didn't expect anyone to actually help them. Dr. Yuna looked up from her calculations. "What do you mean?" "Think about it. If you were desperate, if your whole world was about to die, would you be so formal? So polite? Or would you be begging?" Dr. Yuna considered this. "You think they've given up hope?" "I think they're going through the motions. Like they're supposed to ask for help, but they don't expect to get it." The idea made Dr. Yuna feel sad and angry at the same time. What kind of galaxy was this, where people could ask for help and expect to be ignored? Admiral Taehyun commanded, the military escort from his flagship, the UES Determination. His job was to protect the civilian ships and make sure the mission succeeded. But as he reviewed the mission briefings, he began to understand that this was unlike any military operation he had ever planned. "Sir," said his tactical officer, Commander Soman, "I've been studying the galactic political situation. We might be walking into something complicated." "Explain." "Well, sir, we don't know how other species will react to us showing up with a large fleet. They might see it as an invasion." Admiral Taehyun frowned. "We're going to help people. How could that be seen as an invasion?" "I don't know, sir, but we're bringing enough firepower to conquer a small planet. Other species might not understand our intentions. Then we'll have to make our intentions very clear." Back in space, Captain Minho continued to monitor Villani transmissions. What he heard made him increasingly worried. Ambassador Kava was sending updates to the galactic community, but the updates were still formal and polite. "The situation continues to develop," Kava's latest message said. "We remain hopeful that our fellow species will provide guidance when their schedules permit. We understand that all civilizations have priorities and commitments. We do not wish to impose upon anyone's valuable time." "He's still being polite," said Gina in frustration. "His world is about to end, and he's worried about imposing on people." Do-hyun had been studying more Villani transmissions. "I think I'm starting to understand their culture. Look at this." He put some text on the main screen. "These are other messages they've sent over the years. Trade requests, diplomatic greetings, cultural exchanges. They're all written in exactly the same style. So this isn't how they talk when they're desperate, this is how they always talk. It's their formal diplomatic language." Minho studied the messages. "You're saying they don't know how to ask for help any other way?" "I'm saying they probably think they are asking for help. In their culture, this might be the strongest language they're allowed to use." The idea was disturbing. These people were about to die and they couldn't even say so directly. "Captain," said Gina, "I'm picking up other responses to the Villani message. Put them through." The bridge filled with various alien voices. Most of them were very brief and formal. They offered mathematical formulas, suggested the Villani contact, research institutions, or promised to consider the matter in future planning sessions. "That's it?" asked Minho after listening to a dozen responses. "Mathematical formulas?" It gets worse, said Gina. Listen to this one. A new voice came through the speakers. The Ethereal Collective acknowledges the Villani request. We will include this matter in our next legislative review, scheduled for the 2387 session. Do-Yun checked his calculations. Captain, that's 4 years from now. 4 years, their planet will be gone in 6 months. I don't think they understand that, said Gina quietly. Minho stood up from his chair and walked to the main window. Out there in the darkness, human ships were racing toward Villani space with everything Earth could spare. Thousands of people had volunteered to risk their lives for strangers. But apparently this was not how the galaxy normally worked. Sir, said Do-Yun, I've been thinking about what we're doing. What if we're making a mistake? What if this really is just a routine request and we're overreacting? Minho turned around. Do-Yun, how many people live on that planet? 8 billion, sir. And how many of them will die if those asteroids hit? All of them, sir. Then we're not overreacting. The galaxy might work differently than we expected, but that doesn't change what's right. Minho looked at his crew. These young people had signed up to explore space, and now they were part of the most important mission in human history. Besides, he added, they asked for help. Maybe they had to be polite about it, and maybe they don't expect anyone to answer, but they asked.
News of the human operation in Villani space spread through the galactic community like wildfire. What had started as a routine aid request had become the most talked-about event in recent galactic history. Talar of the Kronoth Empire sat in an
emergency council meeting listening to intelligence reports about the human fleet. The information was hard to believe. You're telling me, said Talar slowly, that an unknown species has deployed nearly 200 ships to help the Villani? That's correct, sir, replied Intelligence Officer Korin. Our deep space monitors confirm the presence of a massive fleet in Villani space. The ships appear to be engaged in large-scale construction and mining operations. Construction of what? Based on energy readings and materials analysis, they appear to be building gravitational field generators. Very large ones. Talar stood up and walked to the window of the council chamber. In his 300 years of diplomatic service, he had never heard of anything like this. How large? Each generator appears to be roughly the size of a small moon, sir. The council chamber fell silent. Building structures that large required resources that most species reserved for their most important projects. Building several of them just to help another species was unthinkable. Sir, said Korin hesitantly, there's more. Our economists have calculated the cost of this operation. And conservative estimates suggest the humans are spending more resources on this single aid mission than most civilizations spend on major military campaigns. Council member Vex spoke up. Perhaps they expect significant compensation from the Villani? We don't think so, sir. Our diplomatic contacts report that the humans have refused all offers of payment. They claim to be providing assistance free of charge. Talar felt a strange mixture of admiration and fear. A species that would spend so much to help strangers was either incredibly noble or incredibly dangerous. Possibly both. What do we know about these humans? Very little, sir. They appear to be a relatively new spacefaring species. This may be their first major contact with the galactic community. And their first act is to save an entire planet? Yes, sir. Talar made a decision that would change Kronoth policy forever. Cancel our standard aid protocols. From now on, when someone asks for help with a survival situation, we respond immediately and completely. Sir? If the humans can do it, so can we. I will not have the Kronoth Empire shown up by newcomers. Meanwhile, in the Zephyrian Council chambers, Nala was dealing with her own crisis. The Zephyrian people were asking uncomfortable questions about why their government had ignored the Villani request while unknown aliens were saving an entire world. Counselor Nala, said Citizen Representative Dara, the people want to know why we scheduled a meeting for 18 months from now while these humans acted immediately. Nala had been asking herself the same question. The humans did not follow proper procedures. They acted without consulting the appropriate authorities or conducting impact studies. They saved 8 billion lives, Dara interrupted. How many impact studies was that worth? The question hung in the air. Nala had no good answer. The Zephyrian system of careful deliberation and proper procedures suddenly seemed inadequate when compared to direct action. What are the people saying? Asked Nala. They're saying the humans understand what aid means and we don't. That afternoon, Nala called an emergency council session. We need to discuss our aid protocols, she announced. Recent events have shown that our current system may be insufficient for true emergencies. Councilmember Resh disagreed. Our system ensures careful consideration of all factors. Hasty decisions often create more problems than they solve. Tell that to the Villani, replied Nala. Without the humans, they would all be dead while we were still scheduling meetings. The debate continued for hours, but the conclusion was inevitable. The Zephyrian Council voted to create a new emergency aid protocol that could bypass normal procedures when lives were at stake. Word of the human operation reached every corner of the galaxy. On the research station Gamma 7, scientist Quinn of the Ethereal Collective was analyzing the energy readings coming from Villani space. This is impossible, Quinn muttered to her research partner Zara. The power levels I'm seeing would require the entire industrial output of a major civilization. Maybe their readings are wrong, suggested Zara. I've checked them 6 times. The humans are generating more energy in that one system than some species produce in their entire territory. Quinify had spent her career studying galactic civilizations and their capabilities. She knew what was possible and what was not. What the humans were doing should not be possible for a species that was new to galactic politics. Zara, I want to go there. To Villani space? Why? Because if the humans can do this, it changes everything we know about aid and cooperation. I need to see it for myself. Quinn's request to observe the human operation was approved by the Ethereal Collective, partly out of scientific curiosity and partly out of concern about humanity's intentions. She arrived in Villani space aboard a small research vessel and requested permission to observe from a safe distance. Captain Sunho granted the request immediately, which surprised Quinn. Most species were secretive about their major operations, especially around other civilizations. But the humans seemed happy to let anyone watch what they were doing. What Quinn saw amazed her. The human fleet worked with a coordination and efficiency that she had never witnessed before. Ships moved in perfect formation. Construction proceeded on schedule and problems were solved almost as quickly as they appeared. But what amazed her most was the attitude of the human workers. She intercepted some of their communications and found that they were not complaining about the difficult working conditions or the dangerous environment. Instead, they talked about the Villani families they were trying to save. They're working like it's personal, she reported to Zara. Like the Villani are their own relatives. That doesn't make sense. They've never even met these people. I know, but that's how they're acting. Quinn requested a meeting with Dr. Yuna, the chief scientist of the human operation. Dr. Yuna agreed to meet aboard one of the construction platforms, a massive structure that hummed with the power of gravitational field generators. Dr. Yuna, said Quinn, I hope you don't mind me asking, but why are your people doing so much for the Villani? Dr. Yuna looked surprised by the question. Because they need help. But the cost, the resources, the risk to your own people. Do you think we shouldn't help them? Quinn paused, trying to find the right words. In galactic politics, aid usually comes with conditions. Trade agreements, political alliances, territorial concessions. What do your people want in return? We want the Villani to survive. That's all? That's everything. Dr. Yuna led Quinn to an observation window where they could see the asteroid field. Massive rocks tumbled through space, some of them larger than cities. The human gravitational generators glowed with blue energy as they slowly began to alter the trajectory of the asteroids. Dr. Quinn, said Dr. Yuna, in our culture, we have a saying, when someone asks for help, you help them. It's really that simple. But surely your government considers the political implications. The political implications of letting 8 billion people die? Yes, we considered that. We decided we didn't want to be the kind of people who let that happen. Quinn watched the gravitational fields bend space itself, slowly pushing the deadly asteroids away from their collision course. The engineering was brilliant, the execution was flawless, and the motivation was completely alien to her understanding of galactic politics. Dr. Yuna, what will happen when this is over? Will you expect the Volani to become your allies? We hope they'll be our friends, but that's their choice to make. And if they choose not to be your friends? Dr. Yuna smiled. Then we'll wish them well and hope they help someone else when they get the chance. That evening, Quinn sent a detailed report to the Ethereal Collective. Her conclusion would be studied by xenobiologists and political scientists across the galaxy. The humans appear to have no concept of limited aid or conditional assistance. When they offer help, they provide total commitment without regard for political advantage. This behavior is unprecedented in recorded galactic history. Back on the human flagship, Admiral Taehyun was dealing with increasing attention from other galactic species. His communication officers reported dozens of requests for information, observation permits, and diplomatic meetings. "Sir," said Commander Soman, "we're getting a lot of interest from other civilizations. Some of them seem friendly, but others are asking pointed questions about our intentions." "What kind of questions?" "They want to know what we expect to gain from this operation. They're having trouble believing we're doing it just to help the Volani." Admiral Taehyun nodded. He had expected this reaction. "What are you telling them?" "The truth, sir, that we're here to save lives." "And how are they responding to that?" "With suspicion, mostly. A few species have offered to mediate the situation as if they think there might be a hidden conflict." "Well," said Admiral Taehyun, "I suppose we'll have to prove our intentions through our actions." As word of the human operation continued to spread, it began to change how other species thought about aid and cooperation.